and vote again for their lawyers, celebrities, billionaires, and chosen ones from above. We choose our heroes from below, from the rank and file, who do what is right at the right time, not when it's convenient and popular. They can never represent us. What America needs is a movement by the working people, for the working people, who are educated, organized, decentralized, and fight for independence from their systems of control. And that movement exists. It's ready for you. We don't need them. We need us to go bottoms up, neighbor to neighbor. My journey, your journey are all the same. It's our time. It's time we had one of us. It's time to win back truth, freedom, health, to win back America. Be part of this historic movement, all the way to our victory on November 5th, 2024. If you're an American citizen, pledge your vote now for Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, the independent candidate for U.S. president. No matter where you live, you can be a part of this. Volunteer as little as 20 minutes a day. Don't delay. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, and I approve this message, paid for by Dr. Shiva for president.
And on that note, I'm going to add Dr. Shiva into the show. Welcome, Dr. Shiva. How are you? Dr. Shiva, can you hear me? I think Dr. Shiva, are you able to hear my audio? Test there. I'll tell you what, Dr. Shiva, I think there might be an issue. Let me just, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just start quickly private chat. Going again. There you go. And just re-enter show. Just re-enter show. Right, if you can hear me, Dr. Shiva, I'm just going to just kick you out of the studio, but then just come back in again if that's possible. If you can see that message, hopefully. Right. Let me just do that. Let me just remove. Hopefully, sorry, a bit of technical issues there. I don't know what's happened there because it does seem okay on my end. So I'm just going to see. I'll tell you what, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to see if anything is an issue. Give me 1 second, guys, and I'll be back very shortly.
Hello, Radio Olympia. Direct television from the studios of the Alexander Television from the studios of the Alexander Palace.
As you can see behind the trade centre, huge clouds of smoke, huge clouds of smoke.
They took the babies out of incubators. They took the babies out of incubators. Took the incubators and let the children to die on the incubators and let the children to die on the cold floor.
First tonight, fresh allegations. Fresh allegations. Savile abused young girls during his career. Emerged today.
Jill Dando, known and loved by millions, has been brutally fired. A 37-year-old presenter died in hospital after being found shot through the head on her own doorstep.
That is the decision then by the jury that those reasons by the match commander, and he did have a duty of care, and he did breach that duty of care.
Guys, I'm just seeing if I think there might be a bit of a technical issue because Dr. Shiva is also live streaming from his YouTube channel. I've just checked now, and I don't know whether that is affecting, therefore, his ability to hear me or his audio is an issue. Oh, I think he's back. He's back. Let me just see if I can re-add him. Once his devices are connected, it's saying the device is not connected. Let's see, maybe I can. There he is. There he is. Welcome to the show, Dr. Shiva. Can you hear me? Can you? So I think, I don't know what it is, Dr. Shiva, but I think possibly because you're live streaming also from your YouTube channel, it might be that the audio and both my audio and your audio. Oh,
Testing.
Yes, you're back. You're here. You're here.
Huh.
You have
I'm
problem.
not getting any mic. Testing.
I can hear you, but you can't hear me, can you?
Let me have to reboot.
He can hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, but you can't hear
Hello?
me. I can hear you, but you can't hear me.
Okay,
That's the
hold
problem.
He can hear you.
Oh. How about now? Colin, can you hear me? Okay, I can hear you.
Ah, you've managed the
That was
problem
tough.
solution. You've managed the problem solution yourself. So that's great.
Yeah,
we
wasn't
got
sure
there
if you-
eventually.
Yeah.
We got there eventually. Dr. Shiva, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? Let me see
Yeah,
if you can.
good. I was beginning to panic there because I was thinking like, oh no, we've got all the way to the actual show, and
Can you hear this? Okay.
Yeah, how are you, Dr. Shiva? You all right?
I'm doing good. I think what I want to do is, Andrew, if you can just put up that one graphic. What I want to, I know we have a limited amount of time. I want to really talk about this interconnection between Ukraine, Lebanon, Russia, United States, to give people an analysis from my perspective what's really going on. So I think that can help your audience. Andrew, so you threw up the graphic, right, Andrew?
Yeah, the true evil graphic.
Yeah, and then you can take it away, Andrew. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about. I know your earlier conversation that you had, I thought the woman rightfully pointed out there's one aspect of religion, but there's a deeper aspect. It's really imperialism and money. And it's very hard for people to, you see the religion, race, all these things have been historically been used ultimately, or sex, gender, whatever you want to call it, tribalism. These are very, very volatile issues because they're very deeply emotional, right? If I attack, you could, for example, not even be a real Christian, maybe go to church on Christmas. And suddenly I start attacking Christianity, right? Colin, then immediately what are you going to do is you're going to immediately, Sean, you're immediately going to say, oh my God, I'm a Christian. They're attacking me, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you're Muslim, or if you're Jewish, or if you're Indian, or if you're Black. So the elites have learned it's very, very easy to use race and religion to really, really rile up people. Now, Zionism is actually a political ideology. It took Judaism, some elements of it, mixed it with, the guy who founded it, Theodore Herzl, was actually an atheist. But he knew the power of using religion, mixed it in, but the idea was fundamentally to push this concept of quote unquote the chosen people. And that concept of the chosen people, why was that done? And this ultimately comes down to imperialism or moneyed interests. Because if you can promote the fact that these people are better than everyone else, then you have a huge opportunity to justify the exploitation of people. Right? Oh, those people are just fleas. They're just mongrels. They're lower caste. Like in India, they created the caste system. Hinduism was used to create Brahmanism. Brahmanism was a theory that of the 1.6 billion people in India, only a small set are ordained by God. They can be priests. They can be this. You say? Mm-hmm. Well, once you make people think that a small set of people are actually better, you can say, well, you get paid 5 cents an hour and I'm going to get paid $1 trillion an hour. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm better than you. So Nazism, same thing. Does Nazism equal to German people? No. They took some elements of Germanic stuff, mixed it in with Ordic force, some spiritual, and they created this concept of Nazis, right? So ultimately, these political ideologies are founded in some type of racism or some type of religious separation, and they ultimately fuel imperialism. So in this case, Zionism is actually racism, which serves imperialism. So that's one thing. It's hard for people to fully appreciate that definition, but that's what Zionism is. It is racism to serve imperialism. And in that region where we're talking about in Palestine, you have to demean the hell out of these people as the basis of saying, oh, they're nobodies, we're the superior race, so we have the right to come in and just take their land. You see? No different than the United States. They had the concept of manifest destiny, white supremacy. Oh, these people are just a bunch of indigenous Indians, we should kill them. In fact, Thomas Jefferson was into this too. It's unfortunate, but he was. One of the creators of the Declaration of Independence. He just felt that the Indians were problematic and they should just be exterminated. But it was under this conception of something called manifest destiny. So people in power, people who want to acquire ultimately land and wealth, will create political ideologies, Sean, and have a big propaganda machine to promote that at a very deep psychological level to make people acknowledge, oh, that's okay. I'm being beaten the shit out of. That's okay, right? It's a abuse-based model. So that's where Zionism comes from. Now, if you look at what's going on right now, so once it's clear that Zionism is a political ideology which is founded on racism, but the aim of that is to justify exploitation. I hope I'm being clear, Sean. I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, it's quite interesting.
Yeah. So to the extent, to the extent religion or race is being used, the Nazis used race. The Zionists used religion, right? The Indians, Hindutva people use caste. You see, whatever they're using, that's actually a smokescreen for the deeper issue of psychologically manipulating people to accept they are lesser, so they should be paid lesser. That their land, that they don't own their land, it's our land. You see, it's a deeply psychological thing. Now, if you look at the grand scheme of things, if we take the top 10 countries in the world with natural resources and you line them up, it goes something like this. Russia has $75 trillion worth of natural resources. The United States has 45 trillion. I believe the next one in line is Iran, I could be off, which is around 35 trillion. Okay, and Brazil, and then Iraq, Venezuela, and so on. So you have these China, about 20 trillion. So you have these countries that have massive amounts of resources. So imagine you being a exploiter, and you're saying, "Oh my God, I want to own America." You come here, Columbus, right? And you say, "Oh my God, look at all these brown-skinned Indian people. They just give willingly of what they have. They're all naked and stuff. I'm going to demean them, and I'm going to just take over their land." So I did a big post a couple of days ago, a funny post, which said that Jared Kushner put out a new book, and the title of the book was "Genocide: How to Buy Real Estate for No Money Down." Okay, and so $45 trillion worth of natural resources overnight in the hand of a few people. I'm talking about the United States. Okay. So as the U.S. imperial economy built, and that's what Britain was about. What would Britain do? Just go acquire land. And how did they do it? Did they go get a bank loan? Right? Did they say, oh, I need to buy India, I need to buy Africa, I need a bank loan? No, what they did was they used philosophies and political ideologies. They went to Africa and they literally created the concept of nation states. They drew random lines, and where for centuries people had their own tribal lines, and they overnight had this tribe fighting with this tribe, and then they would go do backroom deals, having everyone fight each other, but the ultimate goal was like a monopoly game, acquiring resources. In India, the same thing occurred. So the acquisition of land for free, they invest a little bit in war, subjugation, genocide, and taking people's land, is in many ways probably the biggest return on investment. Okay, so if you look at now, if you step back and you look at the arc of modern history over the last about 150 years, what you'll find is that one of the nations that has been very problematic to imperialism has been the nation of Russia. And we have to appreciate what occurred in 1917 and what occurred in the Paris Commune before that, where the first time in human history, working people rose up and they fought against their establishment. The second, that was in the Paris Commune for 2 months, right? Some people may remember when the Prussians and the French army were killing each other, the French workers said, fuck these guys, they took over the land, right? They seized control of Paris. The French and Prussian armies were arch enemies, were so afraid of a workers' revolution, Sean, they marched back into Paris, beat the shit out of the workers, and went back to fight against each other. So imperial armies will fight each other for land grabs, but they don't want us, the plebes, rising up. Does that make sense? So the second time...
It does. Yeah, I was going to say, we mentioned Russia there and a Russian Revolution. Like, isn't that because, like, there has been this kind of grudged history that has been passed down through, because a lot of Jewish people they kicked out of Russia even long before the Russian Revolution, and there's been this kind of hatred, because a lot of people use the leaders of the Russian Revolution, people like Trotsky, people like Lenin, example, that they all happen to be of Jewish faith or Jewish race.
But we have to do, but this is
go on.
Yeah, but you have to be very careful here, because you have to really study this, because you have a lot of grifters who just make up shit and they've never studied the history. The reality is this: if you really study the history very closely, and it takes a lot of work, you have to be a scholar about this. You can't just be a dilettante. But if you actually study it, the reality is that at the time, in the mid 1800s, there was this working class movement, right? Which was industrial workers. And people had predicted that a workers' revolution would occur in Germany. And that's what people are, revolutionaries, scholars, because why? Because Germany was the most industrialized nation. The concept of a worker is someone who sells his labor, Sean, and gets a wage, right? It's not a serf who's living and getting a little piece of land and he works, right? It's a very different strata of people. Well, out of the entire world, the country that had the most amount of industrial labor was Germany. So people were expecting a revolution there, okay? And the elites put massive amounts of money to make sure a revolution didn't come up. Now, Lenin, observing this, he, was studying Russia. And if you remember, Russia was under Tsardom. And if you go look at just prior to 1970, how Russians lived, it was literally in a medieval type system, right? The Tsar and 99% of people, or 95% of people, lived as serfs, right? On a little piece of land, serfdom. There was only about 3 to 5% of industrial working class in Russia. Lenin, who was a Marxist, was under the view that a revolution could take place in Russia. Now, this in many ways went against Marxist theory. Marxist theory said that a revolution could only occur in a highly industrialized country, because you had to have enough workers, right? Russia didn't have workers, it had a lot of peasants. So if you look at the hammer and sickle, the reason they have that is the hammer is a working class and the sickle is the peasants, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, the events that took place in Russia were, even prior to Lenin, there was workers organizing, bottoms up, independent of the Leninists coming in, okay? And so the conditions were set in Russia for a revolution. The Leninists were of the model that you needed a vanguard party to mobilize this, okay? And we can do a whole show on this, but that's what happened. So nonetheless, in 1917, prior to that, there was like a bogus revolution, which was slaughtered. And then you had the actual workers' revolution. First time, probably second time in human history, working people seized the systems of power, and they overnight changed many, many laws. A lot of people don't know. They were going to get rid of money, all these kinds of pretty wild stuff, okay, in Russia, which is, by the way, most people don't even study any of Russian history. Most people don't even know what happened in the Bolshevik Revolution. You hear two sides of it. A bunch of fascists came in. Oh, it was a bunch of Jews running it. It's so stupid. Okay, it's not what took place.
I know about Russian history, Dr. Shiva. I've seen Dr. Shiva.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. People see Dr. Shiva, right? Or they may have read Warren, right? One of those movies. But the reality was, it's a very profound event that took place in history. And just to give you how profound this was, right after the Russian Revolution took place, you may know a guy called John Reed. He wrote a book called 10 Days That Shook the World. There were probably close to 300, 400 Americans revolutionary Americans who'd gone to Russia to support the Russian Revolution. In fact, some of them are still buried there in Leningrad, okay? So what ended up happening was this Russian Revolution takes place. Working people for this first time, Sean, in human history, seize the controls of power. What happens? Literally the next day, 17 different countries try to invade Russia. 17 countries. Britain, the white Russians who you talk about, the Ukrainian white Russians who fled, were part of the Tsar's family, Germany, Italy, everyone. They said, holy shit, working people, I mean, true bottoms-up revolution, seize power. This is going to spread everywhere. In fact, overnight, 120 workers' parties came out overnight, all over the world. People said, we want what's in Russia, working people seizing power. We work, our labor needs to be paid. And this was quite dangerous for the elites. In fact, Woodrow Wilson, you may know it, who was the president of the United States at the time, he sent nearly 10,000 troops to invade Russia. Okay? Every major imperialist Western power wanted to invade Russia and topple this regime. 1921, Lenin died, right? And there was a power event between Stalin and Trotsky. Now, you have to understand, Trotsky was not that, he was an opportunist in many ways. There's a long thing we can get into, okay? Trotsky and Stalin had a power conflict. And you have to understand, so if you're, imagine, Sean, you have just seized control of London, okay? You as a revolutionary. Every other country is going to try to topple your revolutionary movement. This was a embryonic revolution, right? It was new. They weren't strong yet. So Stalin went into wartime mode, which was, I got to watch, he didn't know who his enemies were, okay? And the result was you had Russia go into much more of a insular mode. Lenin, before he died, he said, look, even though we've created the revolution in Russia, there's no way our revolution is going to be successful unless you have an international revolution. He knew that if one country liberated itself, the other countries would come in and swarm and try to annihilate them. But the learnings of the Russian Revolution, where there was a period in history, okay, where working people did seize power. And it was, and if you have to consider this, how did the Russians go from 1917 to getting Sputnik, a satellite up? Think about that. The United States couldn't even get a satellite up. That was because the Bolshevik Revolution, that workers' movement, galvanized the power of millions of Russians. Overnight, they built roads, electricity, right? All these phenomenal things took place, including putting a satellite up in space. The United States didn't even get there. That's what started the space race. So in the 1950s, so think about that, from 1970, in literally one generation, 30 years, Russia gets us up there. This was a bomb to the entire Western world. They're like, holy shit, a workers' revolution has taken place. It wasn't perfect, right? Because of it was sort of the right.
Yeah, I've had the least of it.
Right, but you cannot. But you have to look at it in the arc of human history. It's like if the Wright brothers got the airplane up for 12 seconds, you said, oh shit, that sucks. They didn't build a Boeing 747, okay? And this is important to understand. And I spent a lot of time reviewing all of the notes from the Comintern 1, 2, all the way to the 6. And, you know, as someone who came from an oppressed background, I've been very interested in revolutionary movements. So there was a period, for a period of time, 1957, thank you, Sputnik goes up. So how does a country which comes from feudalism overnight put a space Sputnik up? It was because of the galvanization, the mobilization of the force of lots and lots of people. Now, by the 1940s and 50s, Russia had decayed into what you call state capitalism, okay? Where it's like, imagine taking all the leaders of a party, government, and fusing with the leaders of the top heads of a corporation, right?
Yes,
so
became corporatism or communitarianism.
Right. And Russia went into this concept called peaceful coexistence with capitalism. They said, okay, we know we have this, everyone doesn't like us, so we're going to figure out how to coexist. And that was really what took place in Russia. But nonetheless, if you look in World War II, who won World War II? In the spirit of the Russian people who fought the Bolshevik Revolution, bottoms-up workers, you couldn't deny that, it was the Russian people who lost 25 million people fighting Hitler. And, many scholars have written about this. I'm not going to review all of that, but the fundamental issue is that the Western powers funded Hitler. Hitler was their proxy against Russia. And this fundamental understanding needs to be understood. Why? Because Russia's got $75 trillion worth of natural resources. Now you come to 1970. You may know this guy called Zbigniew Brzezinski, right? He was some people call him a quote unquote brilliant, but he was Jimmy Carter's advisor. He was the Harvard theoretician before Kissinger, who laid out global dominance for the United States. And his goal, Sean, was to take Russia, and people should just, whenever they get time, look at Russia. It's massive. I mean, it's massive, right? It goes from Europe, near Germany, all the way up to, above China, right? It's massive. His goal was this country, Russia, with its history of revolutionary background, is dangerous to the West. We must split up Russia into 3 groups. One would be what he called sort of Eurasia, Siberia, and the Far East. So the United States, starting in 1972, laid out a plan to fuck up Russia really badly, to chop it up. And that was a goal, because the goal was to seize these important natural resources and then to bring in transnationals which could mine it. By way of example, Russia's got 45% of the world's diamonds, okay? US, someone said US not short up. Yeah, the US has 45 trillion worth of natural resources. Russia's almost got double, Sean, double. And it's massive, it's vast. So Zbigniew Brzezinski laid out, I forget what it was, I think it was called the NCC, an actual plan how the United States would have to chop up Russia. And this was the central goal of all of US foreign policy, 1976. By the time Reagan comes into power in 1980, one of the goals was to drive Russia against the US into an arms race. You may remember this, right? It was called mutually assured destruction. The US built 10 nuclear weapons, Russia would build 11. US would build 50, but the Russian infrastructure wasn't as sound as the US infrastructure. So this forced the Russian economy to collapse and the Soviet Union to be splintered, which was one of the goals of US imperialism. And Gorbachev, again widely written about, was an agent of US imperialism. He was put in there by the US CIA. So what you have is you have the destruction of the Soviet Union into all these little countries, and Russia is isolated. And in 1993, I believe it was George Bush, said to Gorbachev verbally, he goes, don't worry, we're never going to go east of Germany. We won't go one inch east of West Germany. If you remember this, right? Don't worry. But what has happened is, step by step, first of all, they splintered up. You just have Russia. All those other Eastern European countries are absorbed into NATO. And the goal was to always take over Russia, starting from the plan of 1976. So now it's gotten to a point where you had a leader emerge in Russia called Vladimir Putin. Now, Vladimir Putin, on a personal note, if you read his writings, he literally saw his father and mother were literally, involved in Nazi occupation, right? Fighting the Nazis. He talks about how I think his brother or mother was buried under bodies when the Nazis came to kill people, and how how they got out of that. So in the memory of most Russians, if they're 70, 80 years old, Sean, is fighting Nazism. And so the US policy has been to impinge on Russia. So in 2014, it was Hillary Clinton under the Obama administration, which caused a coup in what we call Ukraine. There was a legitimately elected president of Ukraine.
That's right.
And they caused a coup there through the Maidan Revolution.
Yes.
Now, why did they do this? Because the policy of Condoleezza Rice, who was Bush's Secretary of State, in a 2013 speech, she said, we must own the oil and gas platform to all of Europe. Now, remember, Russia was making quite a bit of wealth selling I think they have 96 quadrillion cubic feet of gas. Okay, infinite supply. So they're sending gas to, and remember, Condoleezza Rice was on the board of Chevron. Okay, one of the big US oil companies. So the transnational oil company puts in Condoleezza Rice to be the Secretary of State for the Bushes, who are also into oil, right? And the goal was to seize this enormous amount of business that Russia was doing. Okay? So the goal was to destroy that. So first was in the eastern part of Ukraine, Shell, Chevron, Exxon were doing mining already, okay? At that time. Putin figured out what the hell was going on. He kicked out all those companies because they thought they would build a pipeline from the eastern part of Ukraine up through to the Nord Stream gas, what you have today.
Yeah, I think what it was that obviously Putin was basically, I think the West after the fall of the USSR, the West were basically kind of raping the resources of Russia, what was left of it after the USSR.
Well, after the Soviet Union,
he was sick of it, and he just kicked out all of the sellouts, the traitors of Russia. And that's why I think really the West hate him, is because he actually likes his country. He actually is a patriot towards it, and he didn't like the country rape the of resources.
Right,
and
the segment that he represents, Sean, are those segments of the people who remember the fucking Russian Revolution and fighting the Nazis. You see, the people of Eastern Europe have fathers, grandfathers who actually fought. People may not know there's a great not an opera, but a great orchestral piece. Forget the guy's name, one of the great Russian composers, but it's about the Battle of Stalingrad. I mean, 2 to 3 million Russians were out on the streets with pots and pans fighting the Nazis. I mean, this is not taught in American or Western history. It's quite phenomenal, the heroism of the Russian people to fight against Nazism, which was supported by Western powers to destabilize Russia. So the Russian people have this in their mind that they are the ones who fought fascism. So the Eastern people in Russia never wanted to be part of this fascist Ukraine, which is what we set up. The United States government installed fascist neo-Nazis in Kiev. So when Putin figured all this shit out, that's why you have the Ukraine-Russia war. But my analysis is a little more deeper than this. My view is, if you go back, you're playing Monopoly, go back to Zhivzhina-Brzezinski. What do you want? You want all of Russia. You want all that 75 trillion, or at least you want a piece of it, maybe even 20%. That's a pretty good investment, right? You invest 100 billion, and let's say you get 1/3 of it back, right? 1/3 of Russia, 25 trillion. That's a huge return on investment. Just think about it from a business standpoint. So when I look at what's going on, the goal was you start one front war on the European side with Ukraine, and you start another one on the Middle Eastern side, a la Iran. So when you put this all together, Netanyahu was commanded by this multi-trillion-dollar set of what I call the swarm to say, have Hamas attack you. Or you have to remember, Hamas was created by Mossad. It was funded by Qatar. So are you fucking telling me these people with hang gliders come over this most security thing? And that triggered October 7th. So over here, Russia's fighting Ukraine. And the goal is to bring in Iran, because Iran is one of Russia's allies, right? Once you bring in Iran, Russia now has to fight a two-front war, one in Ukraine and one in the Middle East. And even Lloyd, what's his name, the Secretary of Defense, he openly said, we want to deplete Russia's military resources. So you have Ukraine going on, and they didn't expect Russia to win, Russia to start, and over here, and by the way, all of it's backed by NATO people. I mean, it's US. By the way, people need to understand there are many United States soldiers dying in Ukraine, which you don't even hear about. They're already fighting. They're already boots on the ground.
There are, but they're put as mercenaries or something like that. Yeah,
advisors. That's what the U.S. called them in Vietnam. But so on the one hand, you have this huge fight in Ukraine, but the goal they need is also Russia to be split and be fighting Iran, supporting Iran. So Netanyahu was called in to orchestrate Iran. So Hamas comes in, supposedly Hamas, right? Hamas is like a brand name, which could mean Israel's people, Mossad's people, or they're actual ground revolutionaries, okay? Fighting for the Palestinian people. So Israel executes their Mossad plan, has people on hang gliders supposedly coming over. This justifies them now to executing their land grab. Remember, everyone.
So there's a theory, Dr.SHIVA, that basically they were very much aware of that attack happening, and they just allowed it to happen. And as Hamas was created by Israel, I think I'm starting to think. Well, I thought for a while. I'm starting to think Hamas, how it exists currently, is basically a total psychological operation. I think Hamas to this day are still controlled by Mossad. I think ultimately, and then they're just made to look like the bad guy in the theatre production of Middle East the play, and it's just basically they're the bad guys in the Western interpretation of it. But I think ultimately Hamas is still controlled. A lot of people from what I've heard, a lot of people in Palestine and a lot of the Muslim community around the Arab world, they don't like Hamas. They don't like the Muslim Brotherhood. They don't like because they see it as the Muslims there in Arabia. They see it as no, they're just political pawns. They don't really represent the Muslims in general, the Muslim Brotherhood, for example. And it's all just a big, theatre show that is occurring, and it's being used so the West can invade more. And ultimately, it's about land grab. It's about property development. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, that's what I just said from the beginning. This is about using vehicles to grab land. That's why I said I did that book cover, Genocide, the Ultimate Way to Buy Property for No Money Down. So it's a land grab. So, but it's two things here. They have negotiated a deal with Israel. Israel will get Greater Israel, which was always the model of building Israel. It was not just supposed to be this little piece of land. It was supposed to be stretching all the way to parts of Saudi Arabia, stretching out to Iraq. So now Israel has a capitalist incentive. So they get fed about $18-20 billion at minimum that we know. There's probably more that's been laundered to them. So in return for that, they're going to get trillions of dollars worth of land in the Middle East. And in return for that, the US and British imperialists and transnational companies want to draw Iran into this. That's the goal, right? Iran comes in and Russia will have to fight these two wars. And if Russia has to fight two wars, the goal is to weaken Russia. And if you weaken Russia, they're looking, 5 steps ahead, like lawyers negotiating a settlement. They'll say, okay, they'll fight the war for, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years. It doesn't matter. They'll say, okay, here's the deal. We'll take all of Eastern Russia, Eurasia, okay? And you get to keep Siberia and Western. Or they may even do a deal with China. You get to keep the far east of Russia. China, help us fuck up Russia. You see? The entire goal here is to grab land. And they don't give a fuck if we're saying shit on social media. They don't give a fuck about all the analysis we are doing, even this one, because they have a plan of billions of dollars and to grab land. And so genocide is just a vehicle to get there. So Hamas, everyone knows, it's quite well written about since 1980, was funded via Qatar. It's a Mossad operation. Now, the reality is there are people in these regions in Palestine, true revolutionary fighters, Sean, that are fighting for those people. But you can embed something called Hamas there, which even suppress that natural revolutionaries and promote these guys. So they're inner dynamics. But at the end of the day, the goal is to grab land.
Yeah.
That's the end state.
So you're the only presidential candidate that is actually, I've noticed that already talking about it. I remember when someone asked this to RFK Jr. about 6 months ago or so, and he really panicked in his answer I think his sort of glib answer was, oh, well, I wouldn't know about that. That sort of thing about being in like the...
Well, he wasn't even glib. He in another interview, he said the Palestinian people are the most pampered people on the planet. Okay? So I have been exposed... Yeah, just go look at it. You'll find it. So RFK and his entire family, they're just another wing of the swarm. They're just a different mob family, you see? And they have deluded the American public to think JFK. I mean, we have a woman in our movement. She said her father was roommates with John F. Kennedy at Harvard. And he said, complete idiot, had syphilis, had every STD, never did his homework, and always got A's. This guy is created, including John F. Kennedy. So then they made John F. Kennedy look like he's Camelot, like he's some hero, right? The Kennedys are heroes. Well, there's just a bunch of mafia people fighting against Jewish mafia, fighting against our, you know, it's these different clans, and they get the public, us, feeling sympathetic for them. And this is what the slave mentality is. So I have only a couple more minutes, Sean, but I wanted to share this analysis, this global analysis, to make people understand that we as working people have, this doesn't affect any of us, except you have to recognize that we are little fleas to these people. We're a flea on a rat's ass on a elephant's ass, okay? So it is about acquiring massive amounts of wealth and using investments that they get to manipulate the media, have people like bogus people like Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, whoever you want to call it, Tucker Carlson, Booby Kennedys, all these people. These people are just stage actors whose job is to sell a product. And the product that they're selling us, oh, you should support our genocide, okay? It's good to grab land. You're going to benefit from this. But that's what whether it's Trump or Kamala, it's like A/B marketing testing. There, oh, do you want Pepsi or Coke? Well, see which one can deceive the people. Whoever is better at deceiving the people, they'll flip the switch on November 5th, and those people get to be president. Now, in our case, just in the few minutes remaining here, Sean, we have built a bottoms-up movement. We are now on the ballots in every state except 4. We're listed in 13 states. This is unbelievable, and we did this with less than $50,000. Booby Kennedy raised $20 million. So think about the movement that we've created in the United States. We have an organizational structure, leaders in every state. It is a shitload of effort to get on the ballot. In Massachusetts, we had to collect one by one, 22,000 signatures by our own labor, Sean. People like Jill Stein, another liberal Zionist, people like Kennedy paid people to collect signatures. That's why they collected $20 million. We did it bottoms up. So our movement is a bottoms up workers movement, which is they don't want that. They don't want leaders like me or you emerging bottoms up. They want their leaders. Yes, there will be leaders. There will be organizational structure, but they want theirs. So that's why, you know, in 2020, I had to expose Kennedy. We lost 20% of our followers. People are thinking he's a hero. It's a complete scumbag. He's a total dirtbag. So the important thing is our movement exists and it's global. We're in the United Kingdom. We're in Africa. We're in Australia. We're in every part of Europe. And we're in the United States, Canada, everywhere. This movement is volunteers, bottoms up. There's no big funding coming into this. It's us using our labor. I do these videos to reach the audience, right? In 2020, I reached about 500 million people because the censors hadn't come in then yet, Sean, right? We got our word out. And they said, holy shit, this guy, Dr.SHIVA, he's not owned by anyone. So they had to censor me in through shadow banning. So the new form of attacking free speech is they leave you on the platform, but they put a digital wall around you.
I because I'm watching your YouTube channel at the same time, and you've got, and I know you are because shadow ban that is because you've got almost 250,000 subscribers on YouTube, and yet you only have 226 people watching. That's mathematically impossible. Like
exactly.
In terms of how the algorithm works on YouTube, etc.
Yeah, even if you use
someone is putting the thumb on the scales, metaphorically speaking, and they're messing up. They're messing with they're throttling your numbers essentially. So there's no way that you should because I mean not trying to say that, you know, something that mean like we've got to combine on D Live, one of our obscure platforms, we've got more people watching than you, and yet we've only got 16,000 followers on that one platform alone, an obscure platforming streamer. So I don't know how it is possible that you only have 226 people watching. So someone is clearly someone doesn't like you because you do manage to get about, you know, in terms of your message. I've been following you quite some years now, since I think I first saw you on Rubin Report when you were talking about the US Postal Service. I remember that from that. But yep. So, and I know obviously you've gone through a journey yourself in a way, in a way of discovering who are these swarm-like people. And I do agree, Dave.
Well, we're the ones. Sean, my lawsuit is the one who exposed the entire backdoor portal into Twitter and all the social media companies in 2020 in a historic lawsuit that we won. Tucker Carlson suppressed that. Glenn Greenwald suppressed it for 2 years. You see, this is the way the swarm works. When news comes out from people like us, bottom up. They don't want us to get the limelight. So they wait 2 years when the story's already dead and gone, when the damage has been done. This is called a limited handout.
Like the jabs, like the lockdowns, etc.
Yep. Yep. And Kennedy was supporting lockdowns in 2020 when it mattered. So in the interest of time, Sean, we can do this again. I'm sorry, I just have to take this other call. But yeah, so this is what I said. Someone said, what do you think about
this? This is hilarious. I thought this was brilliant. Trump say, what comes to mind when you see this team of Trump, Vance, Kennedy Jr., Tulsi, Vivek, Elon Musk? And then you've just said simply Mossad.
Yeah, go down. Look at the number of views this got, even in spite of the shadow banning. Okay, it got about 230,000 views. Okay,
no, it's actually 342,000.
Multiply that by 100. That's what it actually got. Okay, so this is what's going on, and I have a lawsuit against Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg in federal court in the United States, and it's going to go up to the appeals court because I was the one who won the lawsuit in Massachusetts on this. So the bottom line is, Sean, they don't want any real opposition. Our movement is real opposition. So in closing, what I want to share with people, and I'd like to follow up with you again, is go to, every week, Sean, like tonight we have a forum that we do, 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. By the way, we have a whole powerful group in the United Kingdom. Okay, we have leaders, we do events, and so people should go to truthfreedomhealth.com, truthfreedomhealth.com. That's for our global movement, and we teach people how to fight. Our slogan is save yourself. No one is coming to save us. We have to build a bottoms-up movement. In the United States right now, you can go to Shiva, SHIVA numeral 4 president.com. And what we're doing is our movement is fully going offline, Sean. The future is offline. Yeah, so great. Our people, so if you go there, this is truthfreedomhealth.com. Everyone should go there and become a Truth Freedom Health Warrior Scholar this evening at vashiva.com/orientation. I'll put it in the chat for your people, vashiva.com. You can go sign up. There's no cost, nothing, to come to our orientation. We do an open house. And the other thing is people should go to shattertheswarm.com. Shattertheswarm.com is a video everyone should watch with their family and their kids. It'll explain to you how the few control the many.
I'll play that after you go, Dr. Shiva, yeah?
Okay, so I just wanted to say that we have very specific homework assignments, if you want to say, for people to do. Those people, Sean, who want to save themselves. If you don't want to save yourself, great. Follow these people. Our goals were not here. And if you go to this page and you click on the free downloads, click on the free downloads on the side right there, Sean. On the free downloads, scroll down. People are printing out these little cards. Go down. Yeah, go down. And it says, save yourself, vote right in Dr. Shiva's for the US. And it says they're killing you. Stop right there on the back of the card. Keep going down. Scroll down. Yeah, that is the message. Lifespan is going down. Cost of living is going up. And we encourage people to look at that video, which gives people why. And the other place, Sean, is people go to vashiva.com/cards, vashiva.com/cards. You'll see that this is a global movement. So we know the censorship is online to real opposition forces. So people go to vashiva.com/cards. You'll see that there. Same vashiva.com/cards. I put it in your private chat.
Yep.
There we have the same cards people can get in every language, such as save yourself. Go down. So that's in English. Scroll down. That's in Spanish. Scroll down, and it keep going down. That's in one of the big Indian languages, Tamil, then Hindi. So that way we can reach 1.6 billion people there. And it's in about 40, 50 languages. That's Finnish, okay? That's in German, right? That's in French. And we are getting people on the ground to do something very simple. Go talk to your neighbors. Have them understand the dynamics of power, which is what the Shatter the Swarm video is. So you may want to play that to people, but it's an educational video. It took me 50 years to do that video in a simple way. Anyway, yeah, Sean,
it's a great video. It went hyper viral, didn't it? It got million and millions.
Yeah, well, there's another video I did, which is I'm the only candidate who does not suck Zionist cock, in spite of all this shadow banning. That got about, yeah. So my point is, we are looking for those people who are serious people who want to raise their consciousness and change, be agents of change. Yeah, we have it in Tamil too. Anyway, Sean, thank you for the opportunity. We can follow up again, but I hope people understand that these people don't give a fuck about us. And you have to really take that. And we have to build a bottoms-up movement. At Truth, Freedom, Health, we figured out the physics, the science. It's like a university. It's a community. It's all these things. And we have a program. So, but start with Shatter the Swarm. Sean, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll play that video after. Thanks for coming on, Dr. Shiva. And yeah, good luck in your election in 19 days.
It's in 19 days. And everyone out there, if you know people in the United States, right, tell them to get off the butt and tell their friends to come vote or write it in. Either one. They can do either one. Thank you, Sean. So I hope everyone, that was
take care. See ya.
That was valuable to everyone. But I wanted to explain to all of you the foundations of how the establishment is essentially looking to grab land. And Russia is like wolves who are very, very ravenous, right? That's what this is about. So I hope this was valuable. As I close, everyone should know that tonight, you're all welcome to come to our orientation. We do it every Thursdays, 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. Go to vashiva.com/orientation. You should become a warrior scholar. Go to truthfreedomhealth.com. We will teach you how to fight if you want to learn how to fight. And go watch Shatter the Swarm. I hope this is valuable to all of you. Be well, be the light, and learn how to fight if you want to change the world. Otherwise, don't complain. Thank you. Be well.